My fellow Trump supporters. All right. Hardy har, the mayor says. So, could there be a more exciting time than right now? Welcome, thank you for coming. So my job is just to welcome you and to introduce our mayor, and the way I want to introduce her is simple. For you young ones like Troy Williams, there was a time in this very city where the Salt Lake School District, not in some far off venue way out in the rural parts of the state, the Salt Lake School District said, we don't want the gay kids meeting. And a federal law said, you have to let the gay kids meet if you let any other group meet. And for 4 years, the Salt Lake City School District chose to have no class extracurricular clubs meet rather than let a gay-straight alliance happen. And that happened in Salt Lake City within the lifetime of an old guy like me, but I remember it. Mayor's too young to remember, but that happened. No chess club, no history club, go through the list because they didn't want the gay kids getting together. That happened. And one other thing I remember, we stood in the Salt Lake City Council chambers when the Salt Lake City Council decided to repeal a recently passed gay rights ordinance because there had been a change in the membership. And hundreds of us stood in, I think, the first real demonstration, and we stood there and quietly, at first, said, shame, 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 until the room just started shaking with these hundreds and hundreds of LGBTQ friends and their supporters. And the chairman of the city council at the time said, I will empty this room if you don't stop that. And we just did it louder and louder. It was actually a great moment. Even though they went on to repeal, things have gone well since then. So it is in that spirit today that I introduce, in this small period of time, our first lesbian mayor of Salt Lake City, who has taken us from that kind of spirit to the spirit where we have today, where we all are judged by the job that we do. So with that, I would like to thank our pioneering mayor and welcome her to her own event. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for being here. I'm super nervous. I'm honoring two of my heroes today. And it makes me realize how much we've been through together. As many of you know, it is National Coming Out Day, a day when we celebrate richness and value in the LGBTQ community. National Coming Out Day is about celebrating the power of the individual, the power each of us has to make our local communities and the world a safer and more welcoming place. The power each of us has to inspire the next generation. National Coming Out Day is when we say, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. Remember those days? And oh, by the way, we are going to change everything. I can't think of two people who embody these ideals more than Bruce Bastian and Kate Kendall. These are two individuals who have used their voices, their talents, and their resources to not only make our community a better place to live, but to make the world a better place to live. The key to the city is an honor that I decided should be given only to those who have left an indelible mark on this city and this state. It should be given to individuals who make us proud to be from this great city and state. Individuals who represent the best of who we are. Kate Kendall and Bruce Bastian each have deep ties to Utah. Kate is the epitome of the local girl makes good, and Bruce is the state's adopted son who helped put Utah on the map. We would have thought that Utah, or who would have thought that Utah would become an epicenter for the LGBTQ rights movement in this country. But throughout the last 2 decades, a fire has been burning inside of us. One fed by a conservative culture rubbing up against, ironically enough, the pioneering spirit of this state, which creates leadership and, yes, rebels. And as Kate would say, it's never hard to find a test case in Utah. For the last 20 years, both Bruce and Kate have been adding fuel to that fire. And we stand here today in large part because of their commitment, generosity, and work. Their dedication to human rights has made this nation stronger. They have made us proud, and today we honor you. Thank you.
Representative King was helping me out there with a legislative issue. By the way, this green Kool-Aid, there's no alcohol in it. Just wanted to report that back. Bruce Wayne Bastian is a computer programmer, businessman, philanthropist, social activist. He co-founded the WordPerfect software company in 1978. I had a friend who's a big wig, kind of in this hole, and one of the pioneers in this area tell me that really Bruce Bastian changed the world a lot more than Bill Gates. And Bill Gates actually stole stuff from Bruce Bastian. And that was after... Now, admittedly, that was after a few beers, but this came from this guy's soul. And anyway, that's what they're saying behind your back, Bruce. While enrolled as a student at Brigham Young University, where he originally majored in music and was the director of the BYU Cougar Marching Band. Did you know that? And if Bruce was still there running the band, their football team would probably be doing a lot better. Bruce first developed a software program to help choreograph his marching band performances. When he lost the position in the marching band, it was suggested that he get his master's degree in computer science rather than music. And the great loss of the world of music turned out to be a wonderful thing, not just for computer programming, but for the LGBT community throughout the world. Bruce has always been a major donor to Utah's cultural arts. Among these, there is the Bruce Bastian, or the Bastian Foundation, their diversity lecture series at Westminster College. Somewhere along the way, philanthropy transitioned to activism, Bruce said at one time. He contributed half of the Don't Amend Alliance's budget for fighting Utah's constitutional amendment defining marriage as between only a man and a woman, and I think we won that, as I recall. Oh, we lost? Okay. Thank you, Judge Shelby. Bruce is a native of Twin Falls, Idaho. He was a member of the LDS Church and served a mission in Italy. He married in the LDS Temple and had a family prior to coming out, and he has 4 terrific kids. I think they're here today. 2 of them are here. Hi! Must be proud of your dad. Huh? Give him a ring. Bruce is a member of the board of directors of the Human Rights Campaign, the U.S.'s largest gay and lesbian political action committee, and he was the Grand Marshal of the Utah Pride Festival Parade in 2004. On July 26, 2008, at the San Francisco Human Rights Campaign dinner, Bruce announced that he was donating $1 million to HRC, designated to fight California's Prop 8, which eliminated same-sex marriage in California. And I think we won that campaign, didn't we? No, oh no. It's not looking good. Lucky we know the history backwards, isn't it? All right. In honor of Bruce's long-term commitment to the arts, President Obama appointed him to the Presidential Advisory Committee on the Arts. Are you still on that, Bruce? No.
That goes away with the change of president.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. And imagine this boy from Twin Falls. I remember when Clint and Bruce had got back, they had spent the weekend in Washington, D.C. at an official state dinner for the United States of America. How many Utahns, how many boys from Idaho and Bountiful can imagine a day? It's hard to get in the White House, but to get in for a state dinner is impossible. And there, Bruce and Clint were in the White House representing all of us. Those are some of the big things, but in the little world, not long ago, BYU decided for one reason or another that the gay students that meet there shouldn't meet on campus, but they ought to meet somewhere else. And so they went off to the library. And these are college students, and they had an existential question about, it's $70 a week to actually meet there, and how are we going to pay that? And somehow Bruce found out about it, and over the last 2 or 3 years, as just one little tiny thing, as I see almost everywhere I go, Bruce's generosity, his courage, his articulate point of view have changed the lives of virtually every LGBT person in the state of Utah, and he's had a profound impact on all other Utahns by his passion for the arts and for diversity as a part of our community, not to mention the United States. Bruce was looking for an exact quote. Unfortunately, King screwed it up. So I was going to finish up with this. So those of you who understand it, please fill in the blanks, because I can't remember it. Those of you that don't understand it, ask me about it later. About Bruce Bastian, our community can say, over generations, if there is anything kind, virtuous, praiseworthy, lovely, or of good report in our community, Bruce Bastian has been part of it. Thank you.
When I think about Bruce and Kate and the work that Kate does in California with NCLR and the work that Bruce does with HRC in Washington, D.C., I think about them in terms of from sea to shining sea. And isn't that a lovely thought? Knowing Bruce, I must say, I think we are lucky we got him to come to this event. not because he is busy, which is true, but because... Oh. I'm being kicked out. Stephanie, it's your turn. What are you waiting for? Come on up here.
I could have let that one go. My name is Stephanie Larson, and I must say I feel completely overwhelmed by the opportunity to stand and honor someone as outstanding as Bruce Bastian. Isn't it amazing how this world is full of a few outliers who can change the world in multiple ways? Bruce Bastian has been influencing my life since I was a young girl. When I was a child and I would go to the BYU football games with my dad, I would love to go to watch the marching band, and little did I know who the leader of the band was at the time. At Orem High, I took a new course called Word Perfect 1 and 2. After I finished the second course, my parents bought us a new computer with Word Perfect on it, and we were able to throw away our typewriter. Bruce Bastian was able to program WordPerfect as a graduate student. I could hardly make myself mac and cheese at the time when I was in school, so some people are way ahead of others. But when I was growing up in Orem, Geneva Still was one of the only industries in the valley. And you may all remember the pollution in Utah County at the time. Well, Bruce changed all of that. I cannot tell you how exciting it was to watch this red brick WordPerfect campus being built just down the hill from my house. And suddenly my friends and their parents were getting jobs that paid well and that they had great benefits. I will tell you, WordPerfect took care of their people in a beautiful way. WordPerfect attracted other small businesses, or other software businesses to the area. Utah Valley was now on the transition of becoming a major hub for software and technology. And I think today that we call Silicon Slopes, thanks to the start that WordPerfect gave it. Not only did Bruce Bastian change my community, but he's changed our states as was mentioned. He's given so much money to the universities, to arts, and to small groups like, I will tell you, USGA, whose lives he has been saving by what he does for them. When I got married, my husband's uncle was John Williams. John and Bruce were good friends. So through John, I would hear all sorts of stories about the type of money that Bruce was putting into HRC and what he was doing to fight Prop 8 and the time that he gave to that. I often wondered, would I have been just enjoying the luxuries that my life provided at that stage rather than fighting for other people? But Bruce was out there giving his life for others. I started going to the HRC galas with Mitch's Uncle John. And for years, I would watch Bruce get up, and they always gave him the worst job, which was asking people to donate money. And he did it, and he did it very well. But during those years of attending that, my heart was changed, and I became to understand the importance of the LGBTQ individual and their cause. And I am grateful for Bruce for his time and him teaching people and changing hearts. Later in life, my husband and I were going through a faith crisis, as they call it. So we get on Mormon Stories podcast community, and who of course is there? Bruce Bastian, telling his story. And it's long, and I listened to it over and over again. But what I learned mostly from his story is the importance of owning our story, of being real, and having the guts to be who we are. Because Bruce was able to be who he is, other people have had the courage and the strength to follow in his footsteps. About 10 years ago, Rick's son moved into my neighborhood, and he became one of my husband's and my most valued friends. He is just like Bruce. He is kind, he's witty, he's smart, and has the hugest heart. I texted Rick last night and said, what would you tell your dad if you were about something that you learned from him? And this is what Rick said. He said, perhaps the most important thing my dad ever taught me was something he started saying to me as a teenager. People don't really care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And surprisingly, when I've tried this in my life, I've tried to live by this credo myself. I found he's right. Furthermore, I am convinced that anyone who abides by this, namely demonstrating through word and action how much others matter to them, they can become a great leader and galvanize other people. I believe genuine concern for individuals and challenges they face is a quality that my father has exhibited and uses for productive purposes throughout his life. I too personally know just how much Bruce Bastian genuinely cares about people. About a year and a half ago, when John Williams was murdered, Bruce honored him at the HRC Gala just 6 days later. Afterwards, I awkwardly went up to he and Clint and told Bruce about a project that John and I were working on called Encircle, where we wanted to open a house and help the LGBTQ youth and their families. Bruce said to me at that moment, John isn't here anymore, but I am. Call me anytime. And he gave me a card with all of his numbers and emails. I still have that card. And I'm embarrassed to admit how many emails I've sent to Bruce and how many times I've called him. But I will email him question after question, and then he cuts and pastes it and then answers it in a different color ink. But he has helped me figure out how in my community, with love and bringing people together, we can help serve the LGBTQ community. And what I'm trying to do would not have happened without Bruce, and I will forever be grateful for the time he's given me. His foundation has helped us out financially. He's spoken at our center, he's attended events, and he's done it all behind the scenes without anyone knowing. I just want to end with a quote from Steve Jobs, because I think he may have been talking about Bruce when he said this. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. You can't quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward, and while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. Bruce, thank you for changing our world.
I'm back in the saddle. Thank you, Stephanie, and my heart is with you on the loss of John, and I know everyone in this room is as well. So knowing Bruce, I must say I think we are lucky we got him to come to this event, not because he is a busy person, which is true, but because he is an individual whose humility is matched by his generosity. Bruce is more than a philanthropist. He is an instrumental patron to HRC, Lambda Legal, NCLR, Equality Utah, the University of Utah, Utah Symphony, Utah AIDS Foundation, the Utah Pride Center, and many, many more worthwhile organizations. But you'd barely know it, and I suspect that's the way he likes it. If you were to write the complete history of the LGBTQ civil rights movement, I think at least one chapter would be titled, When Birch Met Bastian. When former HRC Director Elizabeth Birch met Bruce Bastian, they came together decades ago in a way that amplified HRC as an organization. They created an identity for the modern LGBTQ community movement. They gave us something to rally around. They gave us visibility. Visibility which made it easier for us to come out. Visibility which made it easier for us to speak up. Visibility which changed hearts and minds and saved lives. Closer to home, Bruce got the gays out in Utah. More than that, Bruce got the gays to come out in Utah County. Year after year, Bruce opened his home to those who supported equality. He brought our champions to Utah. At a time when many of us felt unsure, Bruce created a safe space for us to come together, to be our authentic selves, and to support the movement in a fight for our lives. Bruce invested in a movement which could work in Utah because he understood you can't have an LGBTQ community movement if it doesn't work in a place like Utah. Bruce's activism and generosity ignited a spark in all of us. And as we know, that spark has become a raging fire of activism. A fire that left many scratching their heads saying, wait, that's happening here in Utah? Bruce managed to create all of this because he understood what it means to be an investor. And as an investor, he is the ultimate believer, believing in himself, those he surrounds himself with, those he empowers, and those he is still trying to reach. He invested in equality, that very principle which binds our country together. I could be wrong, but I bet Bruce isn't surprised at where we are today, even in Utah. This is someone who more than a decade ago, just after the bruising fight over Amendment 3 here in Utah, invited Zions Bank to sponsor an HRC fundraiser. He was successful, but only for a moment, a very meaningful moment. They eventually pulled back that sponsorship that year. Today, though, Zions Bank stands with many others as a proud sponsor of Equality Utah's Allies Dinner. Bruce has helped build a movement for equality that recognizes we are better than who we were yesterday, and tomorrow is another day for change. Thank you, Bruce. It is my honor to ask you to accept the key to the city on behalf of myself and the people of Salt Lake City for your extraordinary generosity, your activism, and your belief in all of us.
I will let you know if I figure out what that opens. This is immense for me, humbling. I'm very grateful to Jackie, to the city. I have a lot of thank yous. I want to start by thanking my parents, whom have been gone now for quite some time, but they taught me well. The Book of Mormon starts by saying, I, Nephi, being born of goodly parents. You didn't know I knew any scriptures, did you? Well, I, Bruce, being born of goodly parents. They didn't sit me down and teach me what I should do or what I shouldn't do, but they showed me by example, and they gave me a lot to think about as I grew older. I'm very thankful that two of my children are here. I adore them. They also help me think about a lot of things in life. I don't think they realize how much they ground me still. I'm proud of many things in my life, but I'm never more proud than I am of my 4 boys. They are wonderful young men. I think we are born into humanity with some obligation back to humanity. I think we have 2 choices, really. We can accept life as it is and just take what it gives us, or we can look at life and say, no, it shouldn't be this way. There are things I want to change if I can. And fool that I might be, I chose the latter. I believe that my personal belief is that I should try to make the lives we live happier, more fulfilled. I'm not a big contributor to medicine. I know most people are. Most people who have wealth do contribute to medicine. I don't believe necessarily in extending someone's life. Maybe that's bad. I do believe, however, in making the lives that we live better, more fulfilling, happier, more enriched. And if you look at anything I donate to, you see that thread going through it. I had my own journey that got me here, a journey that started out very fearful. I was this dorky nerd from Twin Falls, Idaho, who couldn't catch a softball. I was always the last one chosen on any team for anything, except in music. Then they all wanted me. So it was an interesting childhood. I witnessed firsthand the fear of the unknown. I had it. I witnessed prejudice of, quote unquote, the different, because I was different. I was told at many points in my life that I should stay hidden or in the shadows or in the background, even at Word Perfect. I had people at Word Perfect tell me, no, Bruce, we'll do this. You stay back there. They might figure out who you are. So I saw that. And I guess that's when I decided that no, this is wrong. This is when I need to stand up and do what I can to make life better so people can live a more authentic. I love that word, authentic. We have to be authentic in who we are and how we live in order for us to really be who we are and to grow into who we can be. I wanted to make life a safer life for people, and I wanted to make life happier, and that involved the arts and LGBT rights and women's rights and children's rights, and life should not be lived in fear or total shambles. So I finally got to a place in my life where I felt like, okay, I'm here. Nobody can really hurt me which was naive. But I got to a place where I thought at least most people couldn't or wouldn't hurt me. And that's when I became bolder. I did open my house in Orem, which a lot of people thought was crazy, and I guess it was, to the first HRC dinner gala in Utah. And people would say, Orem? You're having this in Orem? And we did, and it was great. And it was not only a lot of fun, but it also really changed a lot of minds and a lot of hearts. So I thought, hey, this is the start of something good. I think most people in life just really want to be who they are. I know people want to be happy. If you just say, get down to the brass tacks, people just want to be happy. They don't want to have to live under someone else's terms of happiness. They want to live in a way that makes themselves happy. As someone very famous once said recently, whoever knew that could be so complicated? I don't believe people can be authentic I don't think people can be happy if they're not authentic. Living a true, authentic life, true to yourself, true to your beliefs, true to your feelings, is the only way you can really live and be happy. I also believe that we all have a right, an inalienable right, to be happy. We also have a right to be who we are. We shouldn't have to live a life with apologies. We definitely should not have to live a life of fear. That, if anything in my life, that's what I've wanted to erase or fight back at. So I'm honored, I'm really beyond honored to receive this. You will never make me believe I deserve it, but I'll take it. When we look at others, I hope we'll try to learn more about their lives and about how they live, and try to understand them, not ridicule them or put them in pigeonholes or categories. I hope we'll look at people and just try to learn what they are and how they live, and understand the need to try to make them happy just as we try to make ourselves happy. That's what I live by. Thank you very much for this.
So, look, behind every great man is another great man. And I have known Bruce for a long time. I've never seen him happier. I have never seen him more peaceful. I have never seen him enjoy life as much. And I think that's because of Clint. So, Clint, stand up and say hi. Let me make him really uncomfortable and ask him to, no, I won't do that. Okay. All right. So we're going to move right along here. But, you know, just because people have a lot of money doesn't mean that they have to be generous with it. There's a particular man in our community, who I won't say his name, but who never gives anything to anybody. There's no charity. And I'm talking about a real person. You ask me later and maybe I'll tell you. So a lot of us know that this guy doesn't give money, even though he has hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I use it a lot. When people, and let's call him Mr. X. So when people call me, like Troy or Carol from the Pride Center, or, you know, whatever disease, and they say, Senator, can you buy a table, or can you give me blah, blah, blah? I always say, Put me down for whatever Mr. X is giving. You know, because you got it covered that way because you know he never gives anything. People don't have to do that. There's a lot of people that don't. So it's really special that Bruce is doing that. Thank you all very much. Okay, my job now is to introduce, and I'll do this really briefly, two astonishing women who have changed our life. The mayor talked about a book about LGBT history. Certainly both of these women would have a chapter. They have rocked our souls. They have just been with every good cause that we could imagine. So Carol Gennady and Jane Marquardt.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mayor Biskupski, for leading us to this day and for planning this event. This is fabulous. What a group. Congratulations, Bruce Bastian. As I was sitting there taking a photo of you, I can think of how many photos I've taken of you behind a microphone, but you didn't ask anyone for money today. So did you meet, wasn't there a part where you're supposed to end with the ask? Anyway, congratulations to you and Clint. So Carol and I thought that we would share this little back and forth tribute to our good friend Kate Kendall. And as Kate's elders, we are going to take a few liberties with our stories. Let me just put this down a little. So we are not going to talk about Kate's fabulous Weber State career or her University of Utah law degree or the fact that she's won an award from probably every major civil rights organization in this country. You all know that already, so look that up on Wikipedia. What we're going to talk about is our friendship with Kate, and we're going to start back in the early days. So in fact, we may end by 1990, Kate. And we'll leave the rest of you to pick it up. Oh no, 95, 96. But so recently I had the opportunity of organizing my closet, never really a fun project, but I was going through many boxes of many decades of memorabilia and sorting through newspaper clippings and photos and trying to figure out what to scan and what to save and what to throw out. And as I went through all of these many boxes that were in our basement and in my closet and sorted them all out, what I realized is that when the Library of Congress starts the Kate Kendall wing, they can come to me and they'll have a really good beginning because I have truly been stalking her for the better part of 4 decades. I have so much Kate memorabilia. I believe I met Kate first in about 1980. At the time, I was practicing law in Ogden and running for the state legislature, and Kate was this brilliant Weber State debate student who helped me on my campaign. And I knew from the very first time she helped me on a substantive project like that, that the woman was brilliant and way more eloquent than I would ever hope to be. So I better hang on to her. Now, Tammy told me that I should not probably talk about the other ways in which Kate's causes and our interests and adventures overlap, so I'll just leave that for the after party. But suffice it to say that we have shared many adventures for almost 4 decades. Around 1990, I believe was the first time that Kate and I spoke together at a conference. It was at the University of Utah, and I think it was the first time that either of us really acknowledged and said in front of a reporter that we were lesbians. And we were both living in Ogden then, and I remember being scared to death when I opened the Ogden Standard Examiner the next day, the fact that they were going to identify us. And when I opened the Metro section, thank God it was Kate's picture that was on the front. And I thought, oh, you've saved me from my father, who was supportive but not ready for me to have my picture on that front page. So thank you. And I was mentioned on about page 4, so that was fine. But, you know, it was a big deal. So while I was originally the more experienced one, and she was my law clerk for a while, and she was the junior coming along, she quickly surpassed me. And so while I remained practicing law in Ogden, Kate she became a leader in Utah, and then she became the leader of NCLR in San Francisco, and she became a preeminent voice in our country on not just LGBT civil rights, but human rights. And so when I think of Kate, our relationship embodies the fact that the student becomes the teacher. So thank you, Kate. Carol?
Okay. Enter Carol and Kate. My very lucky days in coming to Utah from Madison, Wisconsin, and really only knowing that there was a Mormon Tabernacle Choir here. I didn't really know much about it. On January 6, 1992, I met Kate Kendall, our own true change agent. We both walked in the door of the ACLU that day, and Kate and I were actually walking in the door at the same time. I was the development director, and I was the first development director, and Kate was the first attorney. And I shook Kate's hand. I asked her if she was a lesbian. And Kate said to me, "Do you say fuck?" I said yes. The two of us walked to our offices, and I knew that we were going to have this really great relationship. So this is where Kate's life of activism and making change began. A year later, a sort of cosmic twist happened, and I became the director, and Kate maintained her heroic role as the staff attorney. No civil rights assault was unchallenged. Of course, Utah's history books have the citations on the grand cases she managed, both in the LGBTQ community and other civil rights cases. What I witnessed was the beginning of an era. Let's just call it the Kate Kendall era. I clearly remember Kate saying how she loved Utah. She loved her job. She loved it when she moved from from Ogden to Salt Lake City. Her friends and her family were so important to her. And she had a very spirited social life. Then, as fate would have it, Kate and I went to an ACLU convention in Atlanta. I got to witness Kate going to her first baseball game, her pro baseball game. And, but that was kind of minimal compared to what happened the night she went to the gay party, because I wasn't gay yet. I didn't go to that party, but Kate came back, and everything changed that night. She was in love. And later on, she started thinking that maybe she should follow her passion. And she ended up going to San Francisco, not only because of that passion, but also because of a really great legal position with the NCLR. Kate has never turned her back on us. She shows us her love each time she comes home. You can tell she's so happy here. She's so energized here, and it makes me so happy to see that. Practically every important case that we think of in the LGBTQ community, all the rights, those particular civil rights cases have NCLR's strategies and Kate's strategies behind them. Most of all, those of us who know Kate and love her know that she carries Salt Lake City and us in her heart wherever she goes. I took the liberty of asking some of our mutual friends to give me 5 descriptive words about Kate. There were 65 of them, so I'm only going to say a few. Here are the ones that stuck out in my mind: eloquent, fierce, diplomatic, leader, collaborator, compassionate, brilliant, nice pantsuits. We love you, Kate. Oh, yes, we do.
So as you were speaking and talking about how close Kate is to all of the people here, it just reminded me of how I have had this bond with Kate over the years. So sometimes a year can go by and we don't speak, and then she calls me at the most opportune time. And I remember just a couple years ago, I had a significant ski crash and had a concussion that it took me a while to recover from. And I was just at home having had the doctor say, yeah, you're going to have to be on brain rest for a bit. And I'm like terrified, like, what does that mean? Am I going to have my brain back for what? And she calls me, like, probably conned asked me for some money, but she called me and said, well, how you doing, Jane? And it was just a check-in call. And I tell her, well, I'm not really doing that well. And she said, well, she'd just had a bike crash and she'd had a concussion and she'd been on brain rest, and tells me exactly what to expect and how to get through it. And it would last about 30 days, and it did. And I was like, you know, it's just so nice when someone calls you out of the blue and tells you exactly what you need to know. And Kate has been doing that for so many of our causes, but also for so many of us individually. And you know, as I think about why, it's because Kate has that it factor. I have seen Kate at conferences across this nation over really almost 4 decades. Sometimes I was speaking, but much more often she was speaking. And whatever the event, she is surrounded by a swarm of fans. As soon as the event ends, people line up to get to talk to her, to shake her hand, to tell her how she has influenced their lives. And why do they do that? Because in addition to Kate's eloquence and her brilliance and her strategic thinking about civil rights, she has this magnetic ability to make people feel appreciated, to make them feel needed, and to make them feel loved. It's that ability that makes you shine, Kate. So look at your friends and family gathered here today, and they all know it, and I hope that you know it too. Kate, it honors us to honor you. Congratulations.
In describing her daughter, Kate Kendall's mother would say, Kate is in charge of all the gays. And for decades, Kate has been a leader in the fight for equality in this state and in this nation. As you may know, Kate has been the executive director of the National Center for Lesbian Rights since 1996, I believe it is. Before that, she was NCLR's legal director. And before that, she was the first staff attorney for the ACLU of Utah. For a lot of us, Kate has been in charge of the gays since we first came out. Bold, brave, and if I don't swear here, I'll get in trouble, but damn smart. Thank you, Kate, for putting yourself out there. Kate was often the face of LGBTQ people we saw on our televisions at a time when it seemed our very existence was up for debate. In the 1990s, when our call to action was simply to come out, Kate was on TV debating the likes of Billy Graham and Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson. I don't know if many of you remember those days, but I sure do. To watch her manage that, to watch her debate people like them was inspiring. When so many were looking for a way to simply stand up and be counted, Kate was showing all of us how to stand up and fight for ourselves. Having grown up Mormon in Ogden, we couldn't and shouldn't be surprised she became a pioneer. Like any pioneer, Kate has spent her life forging new paths forward. I can remember when I was a legislator, meeting after meeting would occur with PFLAG and other individuals who would travel to this community to help forge that path forward. Kate and Laura Gray and Jane and Terry Cogan and Evan Wolfson and others would come together from across this country, and we would break bread and talk about LGBTQ equality and how to move it forward here in Utah. Ever the lawyer, Kate was insistent that with anything we do, we should get everything on the record. If it's on the record, it can become precedent. And for lawyers, that's the most important thing of all. The path to where we are today is a journey of small steps that many people like Kate Kendall were charting for decades. We avoided saying this for a long time, but Pat, Billy, and Jerry were right. There was a gay agenda. And it was largely created by Kate Kendall. Through her leadership at NCLR and in the LGBTQ movement, Kate Kendall helped create a body of law which has moved us all to a more equal place. A body of law which has allowed us to safely create our families. A body of law which has let us go back to work without fear. A body of law which has helped keep kids safe in school and frankly saved lives. I, like many others, got married to my wife Betty here in the beautiful state of Utah because of Kate's dedication. Kate was our wedding officiant. How lucky were we? So she helped us in more ways than one. But as co-counsel in Kitchen v. Herbert, NCLR brought tremendous resources to what became a historic marriage equality victory. And it was music to my ears just this month to hear that the State Board of Education announced that under new rules, discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity will not be permitted in Utah public schools. That critical announcement came after NCLR partnered with Equality Utah in a challenge to Utah's law that prohibited advocacy of homosexuality. In a sign of the times, and because of that body of law which Kate helped create, that case was settled relatively quickly. When I think about that case, I can't help but think of the fight which got me involved in politics, the fight for the gay-straight alliance clubs in our local schools. That case went on for years, as you heard. Everyone from the school board, the parents, to the politicians were dragging their feet. They refused to acknowledge the help that these kids needed to feel safe. Sometimes it's not until you look back that you see just how far we've come and who was leading. And then you look forward and you see opportunities, and there is Kate Kendall still leading the way. Thank you. It is my honor to ask you to accept this key to the city on behalf of myself and the people of Salt Lake City for your extraordinary activism and your visionary work, which has improved the lives of people in this city, state, and nation. Thank you.
I truly have never felt so moved and overwhelmed and grateful and honored. And to share this afternoon with Bruce Bastian, a hero to me, and with you, Madam Mayor, longtime friend, to have so many friends and family, people that I love with every fiber of my being here today, it truly is overwhelming. When Jackie called me to offer me this tremendous honor, at first I felt like a little bit like the person that gets the Nobel Prize, and their very first reaction they have is, I thought it was a joke or a hoax or something. It is such a special honor because, and I so appreciate Jane and Carol mentioning how much this place means to me. This will always be my home. I love the Bay Area, I love San Francisco, who doesn't? But when I come here, I do feel a sense of joy and a sense of belonging, largely because Jane and Carol have held me and cradled me from the time I was a little baby dyke to this moment. But I could not have imagined being that baby dyke growing up in Ogden, Utah. I certainly could not have imagined that there would be a moment like this, that there would be a day like this. I could not have imagined that the first love of my life would still be an enduring love in my life, but she is. I could not have imagined that my oldest daughter, 35-year-old Emily, would be rocking my 6.5-month-old grandson, but she is. And her wife, Heather, and daughter, Zoe, my granddaughter, 9-year-old granddaughter, Zoe, here as well. Such a joy in my life. I could not have imagined that growing up and being the baby dyke in Ogden, Utah. I could not have imagined that my devout Mormon sister, well, that part I could have imagined, but that my devout Mormon sister, Sharon, and her devout Mormon husband, Larry, would be two of my greatest champions. And I could not have imagined that we would be in this country in such a terrifying moment, living through what is unmistakably a national tragedy, where everything we value and hold dear feels like it hangs by a thread. And yet, there is a glimmer there, because what it means is that we are living through the most consequential moment of our lives. So how are you going to show up? What are we going to bring to bear? How are we going to not just resist, but to react and to fight back and to push back and to draw a line in the sand and say no farther? No more harm, no more damage, no more danger, no more terror. I often want to curl up in the fetal position just like everybody here. But that is not permissible in this moment. And to do so makes us complicit with the terrorizer. So we draw on courage and resolve and hope and strength, which you all give me so much every day. And I particularly feel that courage and that hope and that resolve from my friend Lisa Church. Lisa has taught me over the course of these last 3 years that the most important day is the day you wake up that day and that morning. What are you going to do that day? How are you going to treat people? How are you going to show up for the people that are most important in your life? And where do you find joy? To have someone like that in your life teaching you that lesson against great challenge, that is a tremendous gift. And to bring all of that together and to be in this room with you on this beautiful day in this amazing city, surrounded by so much talent, how can we not be hopeful tomorrow that we will find our way out of this moment? We will. We must. Madam Mayor, thank you for this spectacular honor. What a privilege to be here with all of you. Thank you.
So I have been drinking that green punch. It seems as though one of the first things we need to deal with in the legislature in January is that 0.5% issue. Sometimes it's so good as a society, as a city, under the leadership of a great mayor, to stop and honor people like these two great people that we have done today. Just put the brakes on our big list of to-do and come and celebrate and mark the occasion and mark the pathway of our lives. So I thank you, Mayor. I have been moved not just by this event, but by your lives.